really interesting clash in our co-main event is we have Valentina Shevchenko looking to retain her belt again and again and again. She takes on Brazil's Jennifer Maia. Matt, Jennifer Maia, a bit of a different test coming out of Shoot the Box Monstro down in Brazil. And Matt, we know how good her grappling is, how good her jiu-jitsu is, black belt in jiu-jitsu. They claim a black belt in Muay Thai, and Muay Thai really a strong suit for Jennifer Maia. And you saw that in her last fight as Matt, she took that title shot from Joanne Calderwood and just took it out from under and really put on a great performance. Gets a win there, gets a finish there. Such an impressive finish that she gets this opportunity and really leapfrogs everybody and gets a shot at Valentina Shevchenko. And Matt, you might look at Jennifer Maia's last 5 fights, you go, well, geez, she lost the decision to Liz Carmouche, who ended up fighting Shevchenko for the belt and losing. And she has a loss in the fight before Calderwood, a loss to Katlyn Chookagian, in which Katlyn Chookagian would go on to fight Shevchenko and end up losing. Jennifer Maia is that test. What do you think about this fight?
So Jennifer Maia is going to be an interesting fight. It's a very interesting challenge for her because with everyone against Valentina, she's just so good at everything. You really have to think of, okay, what is the weak point of Valentina's game? If she has one, I would argue the wrestling is. Now, again, we're dealing with like 10 out of 10 in striking, 10 out of 10 in grappling. So we're just, we're pulling straws in this one, just trying to figure out what she doesn't do all that well. But Maia's grappling, I do think will give Valentina at least some problems. She's very heavy on top, has good top pressure. And we saw in the Calderwood fight, Calderwood was like Andre Iguodala. She was going up for a layup in the 2016 finals. And then Jennifer Maia, out of nowhere, just blocked by James. And then she got the title shot. So it is kind of it's strange circumstances for how she did get it, but she's been in the division for a long time. Former Invicta champ too, so 5-round fights won't be a new thing for Jennifer Maia. I know that's something, for instance, Alex Perez never really been in that 5-round environment, so for Jennifer Maia, this is something that is not new to her whatsoever. I do think the gas tank will hold up, and her Muay Thai is definitely improved. We've even seen it in the short amount of time she's only been in the UFC. If you go back to the Invicta fights for Jennifer Maia, very green striker, but then, and I don't even mean that as like a technical point. You can just tell that she's a lot more comfortable of a striker, I should say, as she's been able to progress throughout her career. Because when you have the jiu-jitsu of Jennifer Maia, why would you ever be worried about getting taken down? You can throw with a lot of power. You can throw a lot of kicks because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone's going to do your own thing for you and take you down. So I do think Jennifer Maia has a few different aspects of her game that are going to give Valentina trouble. But for Valentina, there's not much we can say that hasn't already been said so many times. What's she good at? Well, in Muay Thai is all right. She's a very good striker. Her ground game, filthy. And we've definitely seen there's like a heightened aggression to Valentina at 125. I don't know if she just bit her after the second Nunes loss, and she's like, okay, I'm going down there, and just anyone in front of me I'm taking care of. Because she's been on an absolute, I want to call it like a Legends tour, if you will, but it's just been a path of destruction for Valentina. Hasn't had an overly competitive fight at 125. And it's weird.
Joanna, maybe?
And that's true. I actually thought Joanna did fairly well against Valentina. Go back and watch that fight. I thought Joanna, and I know I thought she might have won 1 to maybe 2 rounds, but she actually seemed to be in the fight. And I do think it was a case where Valentina's not the most intimidating person, but she's the most intimidating person. It's that aura that she gives off, where she looks you dead in the eyes, she has that knife on her hip.
The gun tattoo with the bullets?
But I just mean, if you see her, you don't look at her and think like, oh wow, she must be an MMA fighter. She could walk around the street and you never think anything of it. But when she gets into that cage, the violence in which she, I don't know, just puts out amongst people is truly impressive. Now, for Valentina, the up in aggression, the only down part for that could be, well, how's her cardio going to fare? But with Valentina, she has such good technique. She's never overthrowing anything and really putting herself in harm's way. Listen, if you can fight Amanda Nunes for 8 rounds without getting finished, you deserve a trophy. So Valentina, it's less what can Jennifer Maia do and what she's really good at. It's just, I don't know what beats Valentina Shevchenko. I know Amanda Nunes can. I know a bigger, more physical person can. And Jennifer Maia does share. She doesn't, of course, have the striking of Nunes or that big power, but she does have some of the wrestling and the grappling aspects of Nunes' game that she could be able to take advantage of. It's just really hard when you look at Valentina to see, okay, how is she going to lose her title? I don't see her getting knocked out by Jennifer Maia. Jennifer Maia could land a good strike. She could make it competitive on the feet, but I don't see her having this big power edge where she can crack Valentina, put her down. Can she submit her? She can, but the wrestling's kind of iffy. Jennifer Maia has good wrestling, but we've never really seen that to be a weakness from Valentina. If anything, she uses it as an advantage. She always goes for takedowns, and it's the weird thing. It's a very Joe Roganism, But Joe Rogan's always, oh, how good her striking is, how good her striking is. Valentina in the UFC she's not more of a wrestler, but we do see a lot of her grappling in her fights. She submitted Juliana Pena. She was able to beat, Priscilla Cachoeira that was a sad fight.
Zombie girl.
And Katlyn Chookagian, of course, too. That fight was completely dominated on the ground by Valentina. So we're dealing with someone who their striking is the best aspect of their game, but they've been able to really go out there and show the improvements in their grappling throughout time. So it's not to detract anything from Maia, and I do think Maia has a few areas that can give Shevchenko problems. It's just I don't know if she can do it for the 25 minutes.
And you look at Valentina Shevchenko, and again, these two fighters share two common opponents. For Valentina, the one fight against Liz Carmouche that ends in controversy had the cut, so they rematch while Valentina's a champ in the UFC, and Valentina runs away with it. And then Jennifer Maia loses the fight against Carmouche. The other fighter, Katlyn Chookagian, Valentina Shevchenko runs away with the fight. Jennifer Maia loses the decision. Take that for what it's worth. The other thing that I noticed on MMA Forum Guide pointing out the fact that Jennifer Maia, this is one of the first southpaws that she's faced. Always a tricky look, especially if you've never seen it. Now we got to talk about the disciplines and the belts and whatnot. And again, I talked about it with Jennifer Maia, black belt in Muay Thai, black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. For Valentina Shevchenko, Master of Sport in Taekwondo, Master of Sport in Judo, Master of Sport in Muay Thai, Master of Sport in Boxing, Master of Sport in Kickboxing. She is a traveling show of martial arts. And Matt, I will take this to my grave as one of the weird martial arts things that I will know and just it'll stay up in my brain. When Valentina Shevchenko went to fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Might have heard of it.
Valentina and Antonina Shevchenko trained in good old Brunswick, Maine there, eh? And we're big Maine guys. Obviously, we're repping Canada, but we're just an hour's drive from Maine. How friggin' weird was it? How wicked weird was it that Valentina and Antonina just decided, hey, we're going to rent a place by a lake. We're going to train in a hole-in-the-wall gym and get ready for one of the biggest fights of Valentina's career. Like, it's just so weird.
The only thing weirder than it was the way which people found out. She kind of tagged them on an Instagram picture once. Or no, it wasn't. It was just under a tweet. She didn't even really say, like, oh, I'm changing gyms. Now, I understand it's kind of a well-known thing for the Shevchenko sisters. Yeah, like you had mentioned, traveling circus, they aren't afraid to, I'll say cross-train. I understand that's not really the term, but they do train in a lot of different gyms. And I do like that. Now, yes, there's something to be said for, again, a basketball reference. If you play for the same coach for a long time and he has one system and then a new coach comes in, there could be a little bit of time to kind of adjust your team to the system. But with Shevchenko, it's more that her system stays the same, but her teammates change every now and then. And I do think that's a good thing. It gives her a lot of new looks in the gym because she's never just getting safe with that one stable of fighters. A lot of fighters talk about this where, you spar with the same guys for a year, 2 years. You're both really high level. Well, at a certain point, you're not really learning to train against your opponent. You're just fighting Kamaru Usman again for training. Like Gilbert Burns and Usman talked about that. Like they trained all the time together. So for Valentina, I like the fact she gets a lot of different training partners. I like the fact that really there's not a massive weakness in her game. And we talk about this a lot, and I feel like it has to be mentioned. Normally when there is one of these like plus 800 sizable underdogs, there's that one thing that you can kind of hold on to hope for. And maybe Jennifer Maia can go out there and secure a double leg and get her back. I just don't see it. I don't think Maia can out-grapple Shevchenko. I don't think she can out-wrestle her. I think, if anything, Shevchenko herself will be the one going for the takedown. I know that might sound crazy just because of how big of an advantage that she has on the feet, but Shevchenko has shown her ground and pound is elite. It's not in like the Khabib category, but her ground and pound is phenomenal. She makes you pay for all the time you spend on bottom. And if Jennifer Maia is comfortable off her back trying to set up submissions, she will be eating a lot of damage.
That's the thing too. And if you have a look at the total Tapology votes, Matt, out of 556, wow. 97% going Shevchenko, 67% saying she's going to get the win by knockout. If you have a look at the odds, Valentina Shevchenko, your overwhelming favorite, the biggest favorite on the card, open to minus 750. Little blip on the radar. Somebody put a bunch of money on Maia on Saturday morning, but Shevchenko right now minus 1385 average best fight odds for Maia, open to plus 550. She's now at a plus 792. And again, Matt Serra beat George St. Pierre. What else do we have? Shanna Dobson beat Maria Agapova. I just don't see it in this fight. I mean, it's tough to not pick the favorite in this one. Valentina Shevchenko, if we're talking the top 5 best women's fighters of all time, Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes, Ronda Rousey, Valentina Shevchenko. I'm just going off the top 5. Shevchenko, and then, your fifth, Joanna, Holly Holm. There's some fighters that are in that conversation. But man, Matt, Valentina Shevchenko lost because of a cut in the Carmouche fight. Kudos to Carmouche. You got to win.
You cut her.
Nunes was close. And Nunes is the best fighter in women's MMA history.
Arguably one of the best just fighters in history.
Exactly.
So, yeah, Shevchenko, you've lost to the GOAT in a weight class that's not even your own. So I really know she's going to lose in her own weight class. Kudos Jennifer Maia. Again, it's a great opportunity. If she can spring the upset, we'll be talking about this for years to come. It's just, I really don't see this being one of those times.
Matt, we're both going with Valentina Shevchenko to defend, hold on to her belt. Really looking forward to this card. We have a great main event coming up, so make sure you stay tuned for that. If you missed any of the fights, check out the playlist over there. But we got Figueiredo, Perez to look forward to. So Matt, without further ado, as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.